Just about like 1 minute. Good? Good? Okay. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Richland School District Board of Directors. We will recess into executive session until 6:30. Welcome back to the regular meeting of the Richland School Board of Directors. We will get started with the presentation of colors by the junior ROTC. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mark. Thank you.
Have them come in and talk about their award.
Yeah, we have that for the recognition, I think, right? I just want to do roll call. Jill, are you online?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, and then we will do our recognition of the Hanford High School Junior ROTC National Championship Award.
Okay, good evening. I want to thank the Hanford High School JROTC Color Guard for presenting the colors this evening. And tonight we are proud to recognize the Hanford High School JROTC Raider team for earning a national championship title at the 2026 JROTC National Raider Challenge in Fort Knox, Kentucky, during their very first appearance at the event. To share more about the program, their outstanding accomplishment, and to introduce our cadets, please welcome instructors for the program, Lieutenant Colonel Arturo Calcedeus, Lieutenant C, known by the students, and Master Sergeant Kurt Baumgartner.
Good evening, Doctor, board members, family members in attendance. Thank you for having us. I'll just take a quick moment to talk about the program for a moment. As you know, it's a character development program, leadership development, and we're very fortunate to have the support of the school district and these outstanding students, but very importantly, the parents, families, the guardians that provide the leadership, some of which are veterans. I'll turn it over to Master Sergeant Baumgartner for a couple comments.
Thanks for having us, and it's been a pleasure to coach these young men. And we also have young ladies in the program. We were able to qualify through hosting our own Raider competitions at Hanford High School. And when we were selected, we originally had a male team, and then I asked to enter a mixed team so I could get some of the girls involved. And then the government shutdown pushed everything back, and then we ended up taking a male team. And it's only our second year, and for us to go down there and bring home that first place trophy in one of the events was just a huge accomplishment. These kids showed up after school, 2:30 to 5 o'clock. They showed up on Saturdays, right? They showed up on spring break to keep training. And for us to go down there and do what we did is just a huge accomplishment, a testament to the cadets that we have at Hanford High School. We also do drones, taking some of these kids next week to the Drone Nationals, and that's in Georgia. The national competitions are government funded, so it doesn't cost Hanford High School, it doesn't cost our booster, it doesn't cost you, all right? But there's some other things that we could always use help with, you know, when it comes to buses for competitions to like drill. At this time, if you have any questions.
Can you tell us what the Raider competition entailed and what you had to do to compete?
Sure, it's 5 events. So if anybody had a kid in cross country and they run a 5K, that's just one of the 5 events that they have to do. There's also a 1 rope bridge crossing. And before I moved up here from Nevada, I talked to Mr. Mike Johnson and said, hey, if you can put in some rope bridge poles out, that would really help us get things going. And the city was able to install 4 poles for us, and that helps. There's also something called cross country rescue, where these kids have to carry 6 35-pound rucksacks and a 130-pound litter. And about 8/10 of the way on the course, they have to negotiate a tire swing obstacle. So imagine 6 tires suspended And while 4 people hold all of the equipment, 6 people have to go like monkeys, right? From tire to tire to tire. And we were one of the few schools that was able to accomplish that, because we used, some of the kids. I said, hey, find me a place where I can hang some tires on campus. And we used the backside of the football stadium, right, to hang that. There's also something called the gauntlet, and it involves walls and tunnels and bears. Oh my, it was crazy. And what's the last one, gentlemen? What am I missing? Huh? Oh, and the PTT was obstacle course, which we set that up kind of at our campus, but they set up a huge one at Raider Nationals. It was really something for these kids to do it. And we were in what's called the all service division. There's a challenge division, and the all services involves, Navy, Marine Corps units and Air Force units. And there's also the master's level. The scores that these kids put up would have earned us some trophies in the master's level. That's how good these guys were. Unfortunately, out of my 14 kids that were on the male team, 8 were seniors. So I'll be losing those, but I have to restock, retrain. So any positive feedback we can get out there, like being on the news, what was a huge boost for us.
Very good.
Anything else?
Any comments or questions?
Congratulations. I mean, awesome. Great job. As a submarine sailor, I got to tell you, if you don't like running through the mud and stuff, submarines, we had it bad if we ran out of eggs and things. Just put that out there.
How many of you are seniors?
I understand you guys didn't smile at all.
Seniors, raise your hand.
Right, so we'll see you at graduation in a couple weeks.
How many of you are entering the service?
Some of
Correctly.
them already
Right.
did.
Awesome.
Some of them already signed.
Right.
Right?
Congratulations.
Thank you for your service.
And
It's
one thing I'd
remarkable.
like to highlight is this right here, this flag is called a guide on. All right. And this young man right here, we didn't have one going on the trip, and he made that. He sewed the little pieces on there, and all the team members signed it. So when we got there, we actually had one to carry in for the opening ceremony and to proudly wave when we won that trophy. So
Nice job.
Yeah, this is a great way to start because people are going to want to come into the program after you. You set a
Yep.
good example. Congratulations.
Yep. Congratulations and thanks for coming tonight.
thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right, Jen.
Get that.
All right, we are now opening the meeting for public comment. This portion of the meeting is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on matters within our jurisdiction. The board also encourages speakers to present written statements to the board secretary, who can distribute copies to all the board members. Please keep your comments brief and focused on the issues before the board. We ask that all comments be respectful and constructive, and that the audience remain quiet and respectful regardless of your agreement with the viewpoints that are shared. The board will listen to your comments, but will not engage in a back and forth discussion except to ask clarifying questions. Please be aware that comments regarding individual staff or students are not appropriate during this time. If you have concern about a specific staff member, please direct it to the superintendent or discuss it with a board member privately. We set aside 30 minutes total for public comment and allow 2 minutes per speaker. So we do our best to accommodate everyone who wishes to speak. And if we run out of time, you're welcome to send additional comments to boardfeedback@rsd.edu. So we will start with Angela Gregorich.
I have my notes on my phone. So thank you so much for your time today. My name is Angela Gregorich. I'm a parent of an incoming Jefferson kindergartner and 3 students at Chief Joe. I am very busy. So my family and I are strong supporters of public education. We've loved our time at RSD and we loved our time with our kids. I want to begin by acknowledging that I understand the school board does not make day-to-day staffing decisions. However, the board does play a really important role for us, setting the vision and representing the community and helping ensure that the long-term health of our schools continues. That's why I'm here tonight. Many of you have been many of us, I have some moms here with me, we've started a ragtag grassroots look into enrollment trends in the district. And we've been talking with many district admins in the last month and are concerned about the larger issue behind the changes happening at Jefferson and some of our other downtown elementary schools, declining enrollments. Mm-hmm. As parents, we want our children to be a part of a stable, thriving school community. And now schools feel a little bit more in flux rather than what we'd like them to be. Right now, families are kind of left wondering, what's the district and school board's long-term vision for declining enrollments and how are we addressing that? I don't believe there's probably one single reason that we can pinpoint as to why this is happening. It's multifaceted, it's complex, and it's a problem. Across the country, districts are seeing large enrollments due to declining birth rates and changing family needs. And while that may be some of the problem at Richland, in North Richland neighborhoods, we clearly see that there are families making different choices other than our neighborhood public schools. They're choosing homeschooling, they're going to private schools, or maybe they're choosing alternative settings within the district itself. What we, the parent community, don't know is why. What's driving them to make other choices? And I think that reason really matters. Jefferson and other schools like it are not actually failing schools. They are strong communities. They have dedicated teachers. They have high data scores and supportive leadership. And they have programming that really impacts students. So before we continue to reduce staffing, it'd be really beneficial for the public to understand what is influencing these families' decisions. Maybe some of this work and analysis has already been done by the district and the school board, but it's just not public knowledge. We have no idea why that is happening. This isn't really about criticizing school choice for families. Families absolutely can choose what they think the best setting for their students are. But as a district, I think we should also understand why they're making those choices. And if there's ways that we can strengthen our programming or our public schools to make it a more compelling and competitive choice, I think we should explore that. I urge the school board to consider establishing a task force of some sort or something that's focused specifically on downtown elementary schools and long-term enrollment sustainability. This group could examine enrollment trends and patterns, review boundary and transfer policies, and engage the public in better understanding what families value in their children's education. We could be asking thoughtful questions like what specialized programs could we put into these schools? Are there barriers within our current systems that are pushing families away? And more importantly, the most important thing we're asking is transparency and partnership. Our families want to be a part of this conversation. We want to work alongside the district to better understand the challenges and help shape the solutions and strengthen our schools for the future. We believe in these schools. We believe in public education, and we hope the district and board can help us take a more proactive role in ensuring schools like Jefferson continue to thrive. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Danielle Green.
Good evening. My name is Danelle Green. I'm a Jefferson and a Chief Joe mom, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to speak here tonight on behalf of Jefferson. But I'm also feeling a little bit frustrated as a parent that I'm back here asking for solutions to problems that are not new and they're still not being addressed. And obviously, we live in the same neighborhood, so we have some anecdotal evidence from our neighborhood. I understand that there has been a decrease in enrollment in schools nationwide, and these trends are clearly seen in data and felt in our schools locally, but they are not telling the whole story for Jefferson. We have many North Richland families living within Jefferson boundary, choosing other schooling options. Most of them go to private schools, and more they're choosing HomeLink, which is I think at capacity now and turning people away. And others are transferring to other schools within RSD, primarily Sacagawea from Jefferson. We do not have a shortage of school-aged children in my neighborhood. There is a bigger story here, and it's one that deserves attention and action. We already had our PE program threatened, and now we're slated to lose 2 wonderful instructors due to low enrollment. I'm here not only because they're fantastic teachers that contribute so much to our school. I think it's imperative to offer 3 classes in each grade in every elementary school in Richland School District. This allows teachers to work as a team to balance behaviors and apply learning strategies such as walk to read. It allows for more focused attention, meeting groups of students where they are at academically. We need action. Changing boundaries, which I know is being discussed already, and limiting but not banning in district transfers will be very difficult, but it's also necessary for the health and balance of our schools and equitable distribution of our resources. We also need programs that could be dual language, this could be gardens, something that entices these families to choose our public schools. The reactive actions by the district don't feel transparent and end up causing more instability for the students and school as a whole. And again, these are students from Jefferson that already face a lot of instability in their home life. We don't need to add to it. I'm asking for collaborative efforts that include parents' input for innovative and proactive approaches that will make our schools stronger. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to our board student rep and superintendent reports, and we will start with Dr. Redinger.
All right, I have a few. I just wanted to say to Ken, maybe you could talk with the parents just about the committees we have going before they leave. Thank you. Just a couple things that I wanted to highlight. We had 2 RISE Award winners, and very impressive. We went and visited today Jimmy Lapozzi. He works for Landscape Services, and his pride and joy are our fields throughout our district. And he does an amazing job. And we are hoping it gets picked up by the media. One thing we have purchased, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, is a painting robot. And it has saved a lot of time and man hours. So Jimmy has served in our Landscape Services Department for 26 years and is a trusted go-to member of the team. One of his main responsibilities is managing sports field painting across the district, including more than 30 game and practice fields at the high school and middle school level. Jimmy has shown innovation by helping lead the use of a mobile robot painter over the past 3 years. He took the time to learn the system, understand its capabilities, and find ways to use it efficiently across the district. This has saved significant time, labor, and paint. A soccer field that once took 3 employees 3 hours and 7 to 10 gallons of paint can now be completed by 1 employee in about 45 minutes using about 2.5 gallons of paint. So very impressive. We got to see it today as he was preparing for the softball and baseball games. His services go far beyond field painting. Over the years, he has done everything from repairing fences to fixing large irrigation lines. He is always willing to help, share his knowledge, and support his team. His work may often happen behind the scenes, but the impact is visible across our fields, athletic programs, and district. Jimmy, thank you again for your 26 years of service, innovation, and the pride you bring to your work every day. So very impressive. And then the other ones that we were at the other day is our transportation mechanics. Brian Burgart, Todd Miller, and Travis Plowman. And so they were when we went to visit them and give them their awards, they are also saving us hundreds of thousands of dollars by rebuilding engines versus buying new. And they are incredibly gifted in doing that work. And so very, very impressed with them. They meet our district standards. They hold very high standards. They both told me all 3 of them, how much they love their job and how committed they are to our school district. So our mechanics are a huge reason that trust is well placed. Their work is quiet, skilled, and critical to student safety. So we sure appreciate our mechanics. And we did a media release. We did receive our state patrol inspection, and we actually got a special letter. BJ did a news release a letter of appreciation. And we also got, for the past 2 years, your district has met the strict inspection criteria to receive this letter of achievement. Your diligent efforts in providing students with safe transportation to and from school, as well as to extracurricular activities, are truly commendable. So very nice. We got this letter of achievement, and just a big shout out to our mechanics and to Jimmy Opposy. And then this last thing that I have, one other thing I wanted to talk about. I'll save that. I'll save it for when I do the audit. That's okay.
Okay. Students?
Hanford Tennis just had their districts, and the boys and girls both won MCC championships. And then both Hanford and Richland had a bunch of people placing top 5, so a lot are going to regionals now. And then the Harry Potter play at Hanford, there's only a few sessions left for tickets, so if you want to go, you got to buy them soon. And then we have an orchestra concert at Hanford on the 19th. And then we have Senior Sensation next Wednesday, which is where we give out superlatives to all the seniors. And we have Cloverstock in 2 weeks, which is kind of like a more tame version of Coachella, I guess. And then we have collegiate signing day for athletics tomorrow. And then we also have softball from Hanford, who just qualified for state. And then we also have a new head boys basketball coach.
So AP testing is ending this week, and then next weekend there's a 4-day weekend since there is no snow. And then the RSD field day is next Wednesday on the 20th, which is always really fun. I like to volunteer every year there. And then also after that, the Bomber Family Night next Wednesday. And then Our Town is an RHS play that's been going on, and it's still available to watch. And then right now, actually, there's 3 students in the district from Richland and Hanford that are attending ISEF, which is Regeneron's International Science and Engineering Fair, which is like just a really prestigious competition. So it's very impressive that they were able to qualify.
Great. Thank you. Rick?
Sure. Let's start with legislative committee. The legislative committee for WASDA met, I think, last Friday, Saturday. And I was there after the meeting here. There are a lot of proposals that we went through. One school district put in proposals to eliminate all of the proposals. So we're working through that. There's 96 of them. And generally you get like 20 proposals that you work through and discuss. So we did get those 20 plus the other 96. But we are working through those as a committee. I've been asked to write a proposal from WASDA. So there's talk in the legislature of having mandated training for school board members, 4 to 8 hours per year on finance and things like that. And by mandated, I mean like mandated, and there'll be, it's a required thing with some kind of teeth behind it. So I'm essentially writing something. Mine's a draft. It'll go through debate and go through all of WASDA that says, if you don't pay us, you shouldn't require it, and you should start with yourselves. And that probably won't be quite that blunt. But if you don't have mandatory training, why are you doing it to us? You guys suck at, fulfilling your constitutional responsibility of amply funding basic education. Go take that course and then come talk to us.
Can you make sure it says that?
Yeah, I'm sure it will get debated out, but yeah, that's generally why I was picked, because I was pretty blunt about that. Also, if they do pay us, they've got to pay us, and it can't come out of the levy. They've got to do it. They're not going to pay us.
Okay.
So,
We're not in it for the big bucks.
I think we're the only electeds in the state that don't get paid. I'm not sure of that, but I think that's true. So that's the legislative stuff, and we're meeting again a couple times this month. Not in person this time. Danelle asked about, and I'm pretty sure that's what they're talking about in the hall, about looking at a task force, looking at boundaries and transfer policies and special programs and dual language and innovative programs, things like that. That's what the task force that Bonnie and I are doing right now. So I'm sure that's what Mr. Gosney is telling them, that for the rest of the people listening, that's what we are doing. And I heartily endorse what they are asking. Let's figure out how we can draw students in and make best use of the facilities the community is given for our youth. I think that's it.
Bonnie?
I don't really have much of anything. We do have a new wrestling coach at Richland High School for the girls wrestling program, who is, we met her when we, Samantha Dufault, and she is our first girls wrestling head coach. So very excited about that. I'm excited to visit Chief Joe on Friday. Other than that, it's just been a busy spring.
Dan?
Yeah, like Bonnie, I don't have very much. I am as well looking forward to the tour at Chief Joe on Friday. I wanted to do maybe something a little bit different and just give words of encouragement and everything to all the students that we have that are doing the iReady testing this week. I know my son was complaining that it had to start on a Monday morning, which he thought was not the best day to do it. Maybe a Tuesday through Thursday thing would score better, he thought. But,
Good advice.
and I know that they get drained by doing it because I also heard complaints from some of our little league coaches saying the kids are just zombies by the time they show up to play in the evening. So anyway, just a little encouragement for them for doing that. And other than that, we do have our spring sports playing in the playoffs as our student reps had mentioned. And I want to bring attention to the Hanford versus Richland softball game on Friday, because I think that will be a fantastic competition. And anybody that's available to go, I think should show up and watch the girls play.
Right, and that's at 5?
At 5 o'clock, yes.
At Hanford.
At Hanford.
Jill?
I'm good. I don't have anything.
Okay, great. The only report I have is to say is I was at the WSU graduation last weekend and had the pleasure of seeing a number of former Richland School District students graduating from college this weekend, which is super exciting to see, including some of our student teachers who had a stole with all of their kids' names written on it. So that was super cool. Hoping some of them come back into the district and teach for us. So that would be exciting. Okay, we will move on to our performance audit update.
All right. Well, the main one I was going to do, I was so excited to share it that I already shared some of it, but was our Washington State Patrol annual school bus inspection. And so that how good the results were and that we got the letters of achievement. So I just wanted to do another big shout out to our transportation department. The other one I wanted to highlight was we've really been looking at our AP course offerings, making sure that we have many offerings and that our students are very competitive trying to get into their colleges of choice, and that we are the school district of choice when it comes to AP testing. I'm proud to say that in AP courses, I should say, in terms of testing, in 2025, we had a total of 1,512 students take tests, some more than one. And then in this year, we're just wrapping those up, we had 1,594. So each year we keep increasing, and I wanted to do a special shout out to the number of students taking the AP biology exam. So both Hanford High and Richland High's numbers were up. In AP Calculus A, B, and B, C, numbers were up. I wanted to do a particular shout out for Richland High School. Last year they had 28. This year they had 78 take the test. So quite a jump. Another big jump was AP Human Geography. We had Hanford High had 83 last year. This year 116. Richland High had 118 last year. This year 154. And so now the next big thing that I will report back on is the results. You know, how many students are getting the 4s, the 5s. As we know, the 5s are almost guaranteed college credit. In many universities, the 4s will as well. I also wanted to do how nice it has been. We have a place where all of our students can take their AP test in a very comfortable environment without distractions. And so this whole room becomes an entire testing room and we really monitor the temperatures. We want to make sure it's not too hot or too cold for you guys. But I think, how many did, we had like, I think 150. I better not say it too loud. I don't know if that meets the fire code, but I was very impressed with the students and they worked so hard and people got to come in and say good luck to them throughout the day. So anyway, just wanted to do a big shout out to all of our students and their hard work.
So when would we expect to get your report back on the results? When can
What do
we
you
put
think,
that on
Tamara?
there?
We'll have the results. July?
They'll have them in July for sure.
Okay.
So I don't know whenever, August, we can probably do it in August.
Okay, so that'll be good.
Yeah.
We'll compare
Yeah.
how they're doing. Yes,
Okay, yeah, if Ruby could make a note of that. Yep.
and that's all I have.
Great. Any other questions for Dr. Redinger on that? No? Okay. Then we will move on to the boundary adjustment proposal. Just in time, Ken.
Oh, yeah, that was good time.
I was hoping it'd all be done.
Yeah.
Well, good evening. So about a month ago, we brought a proposed boundary adjustment regarding Badger Mountain Elementary and Lewis and Clark Elementary. I think we have, do we have the slide we can put there? Just as a refresher. Oh, gotcha. Okay, my bad. So that, just as a refresher, was the slide we presented last time. Yes, we put up on the website asking for community feedback. We got 14 responses, or I'm sorry, 18 responses, 14 expressed support for the change. One expressed concern for a large influx of students at Lewis and Clark. One asked if RSD has analyzed the socioeconomic makeup of each school. And one was concerned about staff cuts while increasing enrollment. And one was concerned about road construction on George Washington Way that will be happening soon. But overall, the feedback was positive for the change. So asking based on the feedback that the board approve the recommendation for the boundary change.
Questions for Ken? So I guess the only question I have is, the current projections indicate that Lewis and Clark can accommodate additional students. Like how many additional students would they be able to accommodate?
They were, so Badger Mountain, I'm trying to remember, Badger Mountain was 72 over capacity, practical capacity. And I believe Lewis and Clark had capacity for about 100.
Okay.
But I may be wrong on either
Okay.
side of that, but we're in the ballpark.
Okay.
But they have room for what that apartment will produce.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
none of those kids that are over capacity at Badger are being moved to Lewis and Clark.
There's only one student that was impacted by this change, and we reached out to that student, and we're going to grandfather them into.
Okay.
We gave them the option,
Right.
and they want to stay at Badger Mountain, so we'll make sure that happens.
Okay.
And that student currently is a third grader.
Great.
Any other questions for Ken?
Katrina, I have
Yeah.
one quick question. Between the two new apartment buildings that are going over there, how many units do they have over there?
I'm trying to remember the number. I think it was like 160 something in those apartments.
Yeah, and not all of them are going to have kids because that's when we're trying to figure out. So we should be fine for a little bit. Okay, great. Thanks, Ken.
Yep.
Okay, can I get a motion for a vote to approve?
I'll move approval.
I'll second that.
Okay, and we'll vote?
Yes.
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 Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And then we will move on to the facilities update.
Yes, thank you. So the long-term facility plan committee, the Community Facilities Task Force started meeting last month. We met April 23rd, and that we had a 2-hour meeting. Approximately 25 of the 30 committee members were there, so we had a really good turnout. Great discussions going on for the 2 hours, and we were able to elect a chair as well. So that was a good meeting. Next meeting is May 21st, where we'll really start diving into the district and community data and start looking at growth rates and all those type of things in the community. So overall, the committee's going along really well. Joe from Concertus has reached out to Rivers Edge and met with Rivers Edge, Carmichael, Chief Joe. ELC had to change the date of their meeting, but I think that's scheduled next week now. So, and they'll continue to meet with different schools as we go through the process with the plan of presenting options to the board in September. So on pace, going well so far.
Sounds good. Any questions for Ken? Jill?
No, I'm good. Sorry, I go mute.
I was at that meeting,
Mhm.
and it's a really good group of community members who are excited to be helpful and engaged. So I think it will go really well.
Yeah, agreed.
That's great. All right. Thanks,
All right.
Ken.
Thank you.
And then we will move on to the human capital update. And Matt.
Yeah. Okay. So the human capital update, I'll just kind of start where I left off, that one of the components of this human capital update is that it requires us to synthesize a lot of different components of information. And I hope that you saw that reflected in the draft. I want to talk about that draft. Just as kind of foundational components, the numbers in that draft were harvested from OSPI, intentionally done so. One of the pieces there, why I did that, was to limit some confusion, so that there's not one piece in the draft and then you guys get people reaching out to you and say, well, when you get on the state's website, what's that about? With the understanding that this is a draft and that it will change. And we'll talk about that a little bit in a second. And then the other piece is that we can use this kind of to build a historical foundation and knowledge. Now, when we look at this draft, I kind of want to talk about it as a model. And of course, all of you are well aware of the prototypical schools model, this one size fits all funding structure that the state has implemented. And while I think that's a component of this conversation, there are a lot of other pieces too about how categorical funding is used. So looking at that as a model, I've brought my notepad along. And Director Evans has reached out to me and talked about some of, is there a way we can incorporate like a histogram or some more graphics? Knowing that this is a work product and a draft, I just want to make sure that I'm meeting your expectations as we try and move forward, or if there are any questions I can answer that goes along with the human capital audit. Conversations we've kind of had internally are about that this human capital audit at some point may morph into staffing models as far as structures. Right now, it's not quite there, and we have some time. Components I think are important that will include as we go on. Of course, the state auditor's office audit of the financial pieces. I've been working strongly with Travis Blyle. And then, of course, the consolidated programs review audit. So, yeah, I think we're starting to kind of form, if you'll think of it as kind of the foundation of a house and framing that. And so this is just a frame. And so how we want to structure it or what we want it to look like going forward is kind of up to the board. I'm looking for feedback about design, how we want to design it, and things that you feel like are important we want to include.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time reading through this. You probably saw that on my emails, and I was just trying to prepare you because I did have some questions, and with your responses, I do understand it better. You know what we're looking at, and I think one of the things that to me is a little bit confusing because I understand how this could morph into, like you said, a use for staffing and such, is when we look at the average class size.
Yeah.
Because reading it, it says the average class size is about 18 for like our 4th and 5th grade
Yeah.
classes. And I think I'd have a hard time. I'm just guessing that I'd have a hard time going to any of our elementary schools and finding a class that has 18 kids in it. I think
Yeah.
they're more 23, 24 type of thing.
Yeah.
It's 27, whatever, but I think that's why I was asking about the histogram, right? Because that would show the distribution of, we have this many classes that have 22, this many with 27, this many with 12, whatever it is. But to get that average down to 18, we're including, non-traditional classes, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
Specialists.
And so if those are non-traditional classes, they're funded differently than what the normal apportionment, right? So,
Yeah.
so when we try to compare this back to the prototypical school model, it's not apples to apples at that point because we've mixed the funding that comes from prototypical with the funding from the special programs that come up with an average class size. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So in this, I almost feel like we have to separate that so that when we read through this, we don't see a huge difference that's not real, right? Because the difference between the 18 and whatever the prototypical model was like 28 or 27, whatever it was. I think we want to compare the apples to apples, that most of our traditional classrooms and how they fit up with that prototypical model. It's easier to compare if we have that separated.
Yeah. Just to keep the board apprised of a kind of a email conversation that we had. The staffing that they'll give you more funding at the state level if you staff elementaries. I believe it's like 17. Now, prototypical school model isn't necessarily built around that number. And then you have actuality, and then you have contractual limits as well. And so it all gets kind of folded in. The idea that you're talking about categorical fundings, TBEP, transitional bilingual and program, special education, gifted and talented or high cap, all those are, some of them woefully inadequate as far as funding is concerned, but that prototypical schools model kind of as a basis doesn't necessarily work. The one size fits all I don't think works. And so it'll prompt us in the future to kind of look at like, well, what's a good fit? How do we staff that? I tried to break down staffing costs about certified instructional staff, certified administrative staff, CAS, and then our classified staff. And so, yeah, the braiding and blending of funds, you get creative with about how can we piece together a position and where are the funding streams. But it was good feedback because it isn't necessarily focused on a financial audit. There are financial components of this, but it was more around staffing and how do we structure that configuration. And we'll get to that in kind of a job description, but staffing configuration building to building is an important conversation. You may have higher costs at a building because you have more veteran staff members. And even staffing that, you may be limited by the infrastructure. Some buildings are larger than others and are newer than others. And so there are pieces there of the facilities piece and the financial component that all get blended into one. Our bargain agreements. And so, yeah.
I think that's my biggest feedback though, is when we look at it, because just even taking the financial side of it out, now we get funded. Looking at it, what is our actual class size? Because there are some conclusions in here about our class size doesn't necessarily measure up to what is expected.
Mm-hmm.
But some of that's because it's the blended statistics, right? And so if we walked in and looked at the actual classrooms, we're probably a lot closer than what it looks like. I think it'd be clearer if there was some way to separate that out a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that your point was well taken, well received. That what I aim for in both reports is this idea of digestibility. And so sometimes graphics communicate, like volumes. People look at it and like, I can see it now. So yeah, I do think that that piece is great. I asked for feedback both on that and some of the other pieces from Travis Blau, our finance director, who's the birthday boy today. It's his birthday, so give him a hard time.
He's at the WASBO conference, so that's why he's
Even
not
better,
here.
give him a harder time.
You give him all the
Yeah.
assignments because he's not here.
Yeah, and so he took a look at some of the pieces and said, we can pull the S275 and start to break some of these pieces apart. Like I said, just as a model, trying to find out what squares with you and what does not.
I think Dan's point is a really good one because if you just look at these average numbers, you could draw conclusions that are not true.
Yeah.
One of the things that really struck me was the average class size at Leona Libby being so much smaller than the other middle schools.
Yeah.
So I think those histograms would be really good. And, I think, like you were saying, what I'm looking for is, what are the best practices that the district is going to extract from this in order to make recommendations for staffing models. So I think that is an important point for us to look at. Jill, do you have comments?
I do. One thing that I would like to see is this is sort of a big picture. I would like to actually see a breakdown of our buildings based on class sizes and then all the itinerants of the other classes that are there. The other thing I have a little bit of a question on is you had mentioned something about this was derived from logistics from OSPI. So are these more the OSPI guidelines and the job descriptions, or did we actually use our job descriptions from RSD?
Are you talking about the job description audit or are you talking about the human capital audit?
When you started, you mentioned something about how it might be convoluted because you used OSPI information.
Yeah, I did harvest a lot of the info off of OSPI school report cards. And so just to have a common foundation, historically, that'll allow us a starting point to track. And then as people, come into contact with it, it'll mitigate the number of questions we get because they'll want to research and
right. Okay. So my question is, did we utilize our physical actual RSD data of what we physically have in buildings currently, or did we utilize OSPI numbers to put this together?
Yeah, so we did use OSPI numbers, but as far as the costs and things like that per certificated staff, some of those numbers are reflected by collective bargaining agreements. And so it was a mix, I'll say, with some state level data as well as some in district data.
So theoretically, the OSPI data should match our district data in theory. Although I've come to realize that when we have each one of the administrators talk about things, they don't match for various reasons, and I don't know exactly sure. I would like to see the data represented of our actual numbers at our actual buildings, because this kind of plays back into, again, what Dan was saying and Katrina sort of added on to. What are those real numbers that we're dealing with at each one of the different buildings as opposed to what they should be or perhaps hypothetical numbers?
So Jill, would those numbers not change month by month when we get enrollment too? So we would still have to pick a snapshot in time?
I do. I think that they would change month by month, but I think that we do a variance on there, 2%, 3%, 4%, because I think it's important for us to see actual numbers per building level as opposed to a whole district, because our buildings vary so dramatically.
Yeah, well,
so would you like to see beginning of the school year, middle of the school year, or end of the school year actual numbers?
Probably right after we have to give them our numbers. So I think it's October.
Okay.
Where we have to finalize our numbers to OSPI. If we would utilize those numbers per building, I think it would give us a decent ballpark.
Yeah, so the different, as you know well, right? The difference between what we're going to budget at versus when the actuals come out, and the difference between that and what the state's going to give us. As Katrina had mentioned, there is a flux of students who are enrolled at any given time, as well as, I would say, master schedules at the secondary level. Semester to semester, classes may vary about what kids are in what class, if they're a semester long class, or so just keeping that in mind, that we'll try and create some sort of snapshot at different points. So yeah.
Okay.
And I think I'm more interested in the K through 5 numbers. Just as far as numbers, using the October numbers and class sizes, because class sizes in secondary and high school will vary depending upon the popularity and who wants to take what class. But I would like to see the actual numbers per elementary school K through 5, utilizing those October numbers with class size.
Other questions? Comments?
I have comment, yeah. The class sizes and things like that, I'm interested in seeing them, but what this laid out for me, big picture, is we're not in a sustainable system right now.
It's true.
I mean, all the way through, your little boxes were helpful. We inherited, I think the state really did a disservice to school districts when they moved away from the salary allocation model to a flat rate, because every school district had already bargained the system that the state had, and then they pulled the rug out from under us. So now we're stuck with getting a flat rate for every teacher, knowing that the more experienced teachers and the ones who bring more to the classroom, the state is not fully funding.
Yeah.
Because, and they will come back, the legislators will come back and say, oh, you guys need to bargain differently. Well, they're living in a fool's paradise. That's not the way this works.
Yeah, you watched that all roll out when the state, the McCleary case and House Bill 2242, and the state salary schedule, as well as staff mix factors of, seniority or veteran teachers and their education level, when those were taken out, and they said, go ahead, bargain at a local level, and we're just going to give you a flat rate. Didn't take into, well, initially it took into account some cost of living factors, but at the time, knowing that was probably the best we could get in that session, I think a lot of people rallied behind the change of McCleary, and now we're realizing in retrospect, woefully inadequate.
Yeah, it was woefully inadequate then, and I thought so then, because they again pulled the rug out from under us. At the time, also, I heard when I would complain to them in Olympia, well, you guys could have bargained this, but the leaders of both parties came out and said that money was for salaries. The Democrats said it and the Republicans said it. And it's in the press, and they can say anything they want to, but how do you bargain that when the people who passed McCleary after being sued came out and said it's going to salaries? So I'm interested in what ideas the district might have on how do we address this so it doesn't get worse? How do we make it better? And along with that, with decreasing enrollment, I think the facilities task force has something to do with this, but we need to figure out what would draw students back into our system. And I think some of the things I've been hearing are more flexibility. I don't think asking teachers with large class sizes to differentiate more is feasible. Maybe in a small class size that works, but we don't have small class sizes. I know what this says.
Yeah.
And we might have smaller than prototypical models, but I don't need the numbers to know that our class size is big, because teachers talk to me and we see it. I do think we have some smaller class sizes here and there, but sometimes you need that for some of the AP classes and things like that.
Yeah,
and maybe we need to look at different models for that as well.
Yeah, in working with Director Evans, it was, it said the numbers are deceptive in that way, and it looks at an average, a mean, and he goes, could we do a median? And so look at, where most of them are clustered versus those numbers. And so great feedback. I think there was you'd ask a question about MSOCs or MSOCs distributed. Yes, but initially when MSOCs, and this goes back a number of years, were distributed, they got rolled, some of the money got rolled into contracts as well.
Yeah, I think that question was relative. You had a chart in there about the amount of money we spend per student at each one of the schools.
Yeah.
And some of them were a little bit different from school to school, and there were similar schools. And is it other stuff, that it's not just that was more of a curiosity on my point.
It's you want to say all students are created similarly, but they fund you differently. Elementary gets a little bit more money, special ed, bilingual. And so it's just, you can have access different funding streams based upon free and reduced price lunch. So that those categorical funds, they do have restrictions to them, but you can leverage them sometimes in certain ways.
I guess my two requests are, how do we increase enrollment? What do we need to do to be competitive? And the other one is, what kind of ideas does staff have, leadership have for addressing the revenue versus expenditure that we inherited due to, my opinion, the legislature's actions?
My 2 cents, and this is out of my lane a little bit, but you do have innovative programs like HomeLink is one. And so there's a lot of districts that do kind of boutique programs within their district. But I think, it is the programs oftentimes that draw the families and draw the students to the district more so than ever coming out of COVID. Got competitive, parochial schools, online programs. And so parents had more choices. So we got to restore the value, I think, in our, with our educators and in public education. It's like we do excellent work. You've seen it with your students here tonight. You've seen it with teachers doing great work with AP, kids taking AP exams and teaching rigorous content. So Richland's always had high standards, and just to maintain those, to be the very best.
So Matt, what are your next steps with this?
Next step. So I'm going to fold in the consolidated programs review audit, information from the state auditor's office and the financial audit, trying to include more graphics, histograms, breaking apart elements. So categorical funding and how those are braided or how those flow in, as well as by building. I'll come up with some type of snapshots as far as student population, how it's staffed per FTE. So you can look at that as well. But my hope is that this isn't the only iteration. That when a year ago when I was hired here, it was, this is specific work that the board kind of wants commissioned. And so one of the intents upon this dialogue and conversation is to make it fit. Like, is this kind of, am I on the right track? Or so I think all that feedback is helpful. I'll try and work through, work to get you different drafts as they come out, so we can keep that feedback loop open. But
I mean, I think what I'm looking for is what you said in one of the bullets in the conclusion, which is to provide a strategic roadmap for the short, mid, and long-term action. Right. So I think I'm looking for recommendations from the district for what to do.
I'm not going to bring up too much of the past, but Dr. Jones, when he was at Burlington Edison, did some really good work on a strategic roadmap, different than a strategic plan, but just kind of said directionally, here's where we're going, and here are the values kind of along that way. So, yeah, it was kind of the core commitments that the
Yeah.
district was aimed at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for recommendations from the district as opposed to you all giving us the data and asking us what to do. Because you may not like our suggestions, particularly if we don't understand the data the way that you do. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other comments, Jill?
Nope, sorry. My screen keeps going blank and I can't find my unmute button.
Okay, other questions on this? Great. And we will move on to the job description audit update.
Okay, job description audit. This is, I'll say a little bit less complex. And so we have some drafts there. To date, we've completed audits for the HR department, elementary assistant principals, elementary principals, middle school assistant principals, middle school principals, high school assistant principals, high school ADs, high school principals, K-5 teachers, secondary ELA, secondary social studies, and I just completed the secondary math teachers today. And so we've had employees share kind of the pieces of their job that are not included in the job description. There are some different themes that emerge as we're looking at social emotional learning and some of the behavioral components with MTSS. I think that there's been a little bit more that our instructional staff and teachers are carrying. Of course, there are different platforms now from Canvas to Parent Squared that people are using. Our administrators have taken on different duties as well. 504s is part of that. So I think as a model, I tried to come up with something that was digestible, only 1 or 2 pages, and gave enough recommendations. So the board had an awareness kind of globally. And then also some of the granular components of there's science to reading is a new program that we're implementing, and the training that goes along with that and implementing it has been a lift for a lot of our elementary teachers and principals. So yeah, I think in general, we're looking at an awareness of what people are required to do. We don't want to ever get in, or we try not to get into a zone of initiative fatigue, that it's just another thing on a person's plate. So looking more at strategic abandonment, maybe, or even updating these job descriptions. So it's what actually is occurring, the technology that people are actually doing in the day-to-day requirements.
Questions on this for Matt?
I think part of this, Jill, you're gonna have to correct me if I'm misstating this. I think part of this was to ensure that the tasks are look for efficiencies. And what I'm seeing instead is this isn't negative, just as laws change and as requirements, we're just seeing the state and the workload is being increased, especially for the leadership positions that I've seen. We're expecting more of them, which to me means we're not going to find efficiencies there. It is good though that we have clear, clearly defined roles, because I think that's one of the things Jill was wondering about. Do we have some people who are doing a lot of work and then some positions that aren't as much? And what I see instead is these positions are doing more than we thought.
Yeah. So the aim, trying to recalibrate and refocus around efficiencies of things that can be combined, or designation of duties. So part of, what I'm hearing is, or as a feedback component is, we want to look at strategic moves that we can make with each job to make it easier on people, less burdensome in some ways. Okay.
I also think that when it makes it easier for people to know what they're getting into when they apply for a job. Like if a job description, I'm just commenting on athletic director, particularly because I work closely with athletic directors. The thing that they think that they're going to do is very different than it actually is.
Yeah.
And day to day, it's like a lot, and I think sometimes just as an example, when you're looking at someone's qualifications or interviewing them, they might not actually know what they're getting into and then can't do that job necessarily.
Because the job description isn't necessarily
right
what the job is requiring, because we never,
Or like, for example, people will ask us like, why does a high school need 10 secretaries? Well, if you were in there and you saw what each of those secretaries was doing in the high school, you would know. If you just read a job description for a high school secretary, you might not think that you need 10 of those. But when you see what each one of them is doing all day, every day, you know that they actually are all doing very specific things that that require them all to be there, you know? And so I just think having those job descriptions accurately describing what the work is that people are doing all day, every day kind of helps, number one, justify them being there when they, to know whatever, so everyone knows what they're doing. And number two is that when we're hiring people, they know what they're getting themselves into so that they can do the job that they're going to be asked to do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kind of piggyback on what Rick said about the finding efficiencies. I'm really curious to see when you finish all of these and you have time to sit down and go through it and kind of reflect on it, what recommendations that you have, coming out of this. And when I was reading through this one of the things I just kind of wondered, just wondered in my head, there was that, I read like through the principal duties and stuff, and each one of them, may have something they spend, maybe it's 5 hours on, but you're doing that at each individual building. I was wondering is there an opportunity maybe that you have somebody from the central, from this building, that takes that for all of those and takes it away from the principals, and then they can spend more time on the instructional stuff, that they would deal with. Anyway, just thinking about it when you get it all put together to see if there are efficiencies and things where we can maybe reorganize who's doing what and get more efficient on it. So it'll be interesting. And then another thought I had reading through it, because it talks about how much time they spend like on IEPs. And my wife was telling me that she went to the IEP meeting for my son, who's now finishing up with 8th grade. He's doing speech. If that's what his IEP has been all along, has been speech only. She says, the principal's there, all 6 of his teachers are there. So it does the amount of resources that go into meeting with a student and a parent, to review that plan. That's a lot of resources that we're putting on those things. So,
yeah, IEPs take a lot of time, and then each of those teachers has to do that for each
one of those, right?
Yeah.
Right. So no questions, just comments there. So
no
impressions from reading through it.
I totally understand where you're coming from. Oftentimes these job descriptions, particularly for building administration, are very global in nature. In fact, in looking at this presentation, I reread an article. It's called The Myth of the Super Principal by Mike Copeland. And he starts off saying that Anytown, USA, the qualifications for principal would be the wisdom of a sage, the vision of a CEO, the courage of a firefighter. And so he just has all these different things. They're huge leadership qualities that have become expectations that are rolled into this. But to Bonnie's point, we often don't break down the minutia or administrative that goes along with the job. And that's what's so time consuming, is dealing with an irate, parent, or a frustrated teacher, or a kid that, needs some discipline or extra attention. So yeah, that time management is important, and it's tough as a principal. You're pulled in so many different directions.
Yeah, well, I think this information is going to be extremely valuable, complementary to the staffing models that we just talked about. As you start looking at class sizes and staffing models and where efficiencies could be gained, there's still the work that has to get done. And this is an opportunity for the district to figure out who does that work. And I think, like you said, how can you take some of the work off of the principals, and who's the right person to do that work so that the principal has the time to do what the principal needs to do, and not necessarily just using the numbers to reduce staffing, but to figure out the right staffing model in the buildings to do all the stuff that needs to get done. I think, so for me, those two reports are so complementary and both really important to influence decisions that have to be made.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of wisdom with pairing the two audits together, similar time, and saying, and we realize that the efficiency, time is money. And so if we can drive efficiency, we can also save money.
And ensure that we're still staffing appropriately to get all the work done.
Yeah.
Right.
And,
not just counting dollars and cents.
Yeah. And still have an excellent product for student achievement.
Right. Yeah. Jill?
My only comment is I do want to make sure that we don't silo the human capital audit and the job description audit, that we merge them together a lot like you were just saying, because I think one relies on the other. The other thing, and I think it's because you're not done, I didn't notice TLAC in there, and I think that's probably going to be your next process of going through and figuring out what TLAC and what administrators are doing and all the people in the TLAC building, and then can continue to combine those. But I just want to make sure that they don't stay siloed, and that our ultimate goal is, how does each one of these placements and what does this look like for student outcome and fiscal responsibility?
Yeah, I was anticipating doing TLAC around spring break time. But as many of you know well, spring gets so busy this time of year. I mean, just is wild. So we will be addressing that in the near future.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
One more comment,
Yeah.
since Dan brought up IEPs. Having all 6 teachers there is a good practice. But the law requires an administrator and a special ed person and at least one of the teachers, I'm pretty sure. And just because I'm grumpy about government right now, those laws are federal laws, and the federal government has never funded more than 14% of the costs of the special ed programs that they've mandated. They're the right programs, I will say that, but fund it. None of them are going to listen to me, but I just want to get off my chest.
If you're having trouble sleeping or something pops in your head about, like, I wish I would have said that, matt.ellis@rsd.edu. You can email me feedback.
Right.
Like I said, I want to make it so that the board gets what you need. And
Can I just vent to you by email then, saying
legislators
are dumb?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's really great. I appreciate the work you're putting into it, because I think it's really important for us to know what everyone's doing. So because people ask us, so I appreciate the work that you're doing. Put it all together.
I'll say I've had a great deal of support above me, and a great deal of support with the people and the HR department, as well as other departments. Travis and I went to high school together. So we had kind of a relationship there. But we've even strengthened the connections between finance and HR, knowing that that bond is so important to district operations.
Great. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job, Matt.
All right, we will move on to policy 5272. This is the social media policy, back for another first read.
Yes, thank you. So just a reminder, this is not a WASDA policy. So this is kind of one we're building from the ground up. So little different starting point. But what we tried to do was take the feedback from the first reading on April 14th and incorporate it into the policy. So in the first part there, pages 1 through 5 or 6 or 7, you will see the red line additions from the conversations. And then just to make it cleaner, we took that and put it into the back 4 pages, which is the same, but it's just cleaner to look at. So there was conversation about that maybe this was 2 different policies. And so we tried to address that feedback into now it's a social media and electronic communications policy, and kind of separate some things out in there. I think it's a little cleaner than the first reading, but I'm sure there's still work to be done, but so looking for feedback.
Questions? What's a district approved communication platform?
So that would, be like, Facebook, any of the platforms that we're using. And a lot of that will be outlined in the procedures.
There's so many platforms that different teams and clubs use, like GroupMe. There's one called Band. There's TeamSnap. There's like a million different ones. And so are they all going to be specified in there, or does each one need to be approved, or is it just up to like the administrator of that?
Well, I think the district will approve the ones the district wants to use and approve. The reason we don't want to list them out in the policy is because if, like, for instance, what was it? Twitter became something else, X or whatever it is. That way we'd have to change the policy.
No, I don't mean in the policy. I just mean, is it going to be listed somewhere?
Yes.
What's approved, and are we going to make an exhaustive list of ones that are approved, or does each one need to be approved specifically? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think we're going to have to come up with the ones we're comfortable using and list those. But I think we're going to want to contain that list to a certain degree, would be my thought. But
and if somebody had one that they wanted to use that wasn't on our list, they could ask for approval for it, right? And then it would be an approved.
Sure.
Yeah.
Or like if you're going to say, for example, my teams use TeamSnap. If the school district decides, TeamSnap is one that we're going to approve, and everyone has to use TeamSnap, well, it costs money every year. Like, is that something that the district is going to then provide, or who's going to pay for it? You know what I mean? Like how you.
Yeah, those are discussions that we're having. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Just checking.
Yep.
Because it's like so, and they proliferate every year. The different platforms that are available for teams and groups and clubs to communicate. Just don't pick GroupMe because I hate that one.
Well, the big thing that we're looking at is making sure that we can do searches in case there's some situation that happened. We need to be able to go back and capture that information. So that's going to be an important criteria on which ones we're going to say staff use, because we need to be able to go back and find information if we need to.
So, and the policy speaks to, these are public records and can be subject to a public records request. And so, that will have to be something we take into account. And this, kind of outlines the difficulty in this policy in creating it. So I didn't anticipate that this would be the last first reading of it. Just another.
Well, I missed the first reading. So that's, I just wanted to those are my thoughts as a person who uses these platforms often, every day, multiple times every day.
How are you going to make the list of approved platforms? Because I feel like there's a lot of them that I guess a lot of staff also want to know about. Because I feel like I know, like you were saying, each club uses a different one for their own purposes.
Sure. So, I think we're probably going to have to determine how closely we want to, if we want to bring everybody onto a district approved platform. And so, is a list of 20 platforms enough to cover what people throughout the district are using? And so I'm sure there's pros and cons to every platform. And I will be totally honest, I'm not a social media person. So I'm sure everybody's surprised by that. But we're probably gonna have to figure out is what are people using? I think that's probably what we're gonna have to really dig into with some of the clubs. What are the popular platforms? Why are they using them? What's the pros and cons, and try to start to narrow the list from there.
Yeah, I'd speak up just from a parent's standpoint, from going through this with 3 kids now who've gone through high school and done a lot of clubs and sports and everything like that. One of the things that I wanted to see in a policy like this was specifically this, that the district will have approved platforms, because as a parent who was fairly strict on what social media platforms my kids had access to. When they would be on, say, a sports team that decided they were going to communicate through Instagram or Snapchat or something that we didn't allow them to use on their phones and stuff, it became kind of a handicap for my kids and for other kids that have similarly strict parents. And so that's why we'd like to see, something where we're just going to say, no, that's not an approved communication platform to be communicating with your club or with your team. So I appreciate that there is in this, something saying we're going to approve the platforms.
We had a system, I think, where there was one place where you could log in and log out. I don't have kids in school anymore. I have grandkids in school, but I don't pay attention to the
Well, we have the
platforms.
launch pad.
That's what I
that
thought it was
created.
called. One of the things that bothered me, like Dan said, is if you have 5 kids in school, and especially when we were first getting apps, things like that, I can't remember all those passwords or even let alone how all this silly little apps work. My kids would say that's because I'm old, but the other reason is that there's a whole bunch of apps and they all have a little bit different idiosyncrasies. Like Dan, I would like to see, I don't want to make it burdensome to get new apps in if they work for the district, but I'd like to have it centrally approved and not 5 versions of the same kind of parent communication tool.
Right.
Yeah, I know the first time we had this come up, I had a lot to say about it, especially around the communication portion of it. And what I asked for after I sent you an email, I was looking basically for the policy like this, where we have the ability for the district to say what is approved, what's not for the platforms, and then define what is appropriate communication between employees and students, but also then recognize that the lives of community members will possibly intersect outside of school and have some sort of acknowledgement of that, and that there will be communication between people that is not school district related at all, and how is that handled? Right. And I think this second draft of it, as it came back, did all 3 of those things, and so I'm really happy with what we have back right now.
And if we keep pushing, I mean, if we're at 90 or 95%, put it out there, let's get it going. And as we see things we need to change, that's how it'll get approved. I don't think we need to keep doing this again.
Right. And I think the policy as it reads has good ideas in it. I just think as we're going forward with the logistics of the procedures, that's where, in the nuts and bolts, where it's going to get tricky and take more time to go through the details of all that.
If there were to be like an implemented list of approved apps, how would that be regulated?
That would go through the communication department. It would be, and that's identified.
The PIO in there.
Yeah, PIO.
It says PIO.
So it's on page 3, district social media account governance.
How is this type of information normally shared? Because I know a lot of clubs, the communication app is chosen by the students. I don't feel like many of them would get regular.
I guess if it's the students communicating with each other, I don't want to step into that at all. What's that?
They usually bring the teacher in, but the student chooses the overall app.
Yeah, so that would not be allowed going forward. So if students want to communicate via whatever app they have amongst themselves, they can choose to do that. This is a staff policy,
right,
but it's a youth protection issue for another adult, particularly a staff member, to be a part of that communication chain if it's not regulated. So this would be something that if clubs want to pick something and leave the staff member out, they could do that. But if they want to loop the staff member in, they would have to use an approved app.
And I'm saying, how do they know what will be approved?
It'll be in a procedure document.
Well, I think looking just at the faces for Tiffany and Sanad here and their questions, it reflects how there is no control of it at the moment. And so for us to come with a policy and a procedure that drastically changes how things are operating right now within our clubs and our athletic teams and stuff like that, there's gonna have to be some, I don't know, training or whatever with each one of those club leaders and the athletic departments and things, so they understand how to now operate within the confines of this
and as the
policy and
procedure is
procedure.
rolled out.
Yeah.
And so
Yes.
at the beginning of the school year, the activities, person, the ASB person gets all the club advisors, they all have training every year and they have meetings and like, okay, here are the apps that you can use when you're communicating with your club or with your team or whatever. And it will just be one of those things and it won't be that big of a deal. They'll all know.
So they could implement it at the beginning of the next school year.
So Tiffany, to kind of reemphasize that, at the start of the year, there's required trainings that staff have to go through every year on a variety of policies. And this would be one of those policies. And within that, they would see their approved list. And hopefully within that approved list, there's something that the kids can say, okay, for this club, we can use this communication tool and make that work. We don't want to make it to where it's impossible for clubs to communicate and stuff like that, but
Need a motion for first reading.
I also just real quick, I noticed a lot of times it said like district approved platforms, then it would say district sponsored platforms. Was there like a distinction between those?
can you point out one of those instances?
I don't know, it was kind of often.
I viewed that as like the Facebook kinds of things that we sponsor. So we have a district-wide thing, and approved would be the apps like Tiffany's talking about. I might be wrong, but that's the way I read it.
Yeah, that would be unless you're seeing something where we've missed.
Well, and sponsored also to
Switched out
me
words.
means like that we're going to pay for it, like Parent Square. We don't expect the schools or parents to pay for Parent Square. It's sponsored by the district. We pay. Canvas would be another example. But if there was something out there that wasn't, that, we're not going to pay for, it still, I guess, could be on an approved list, but we'll probably try to avoid that. An example, when we went to Parent Square, some of our staff were using Class Dojo, and we did have that for the elementary kids approved, but it had to be free. We weren't going to purchase it. So there's going to be some of that delineation, like you can use it, but we're not going to pay for it type of thing.
Jill, did you have any comments?
No, my only comment, well, maybe, yeah. I would make sure that we maybe have a couple different options available as opposed to just a single option, since we do that on numerous things. And I would also probably recommend that we vet that through our student advisory, just to see the applications that they use and what they've found to be friendly, because I think a lot of times they are more up to date on some of that stuff than our educators are.
I agree with you, Jill. I know that when we started the student advisory, we were using email pretty heavily, and we got feedback from the students. And so we were able to set up an RSD Instagram.
Yeah.
But because the students said they would check that, but it was, set up and monitored.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're utilizing things and doing things that benefit students, not necessarily benefit adults.
Agreed.
Can I get a
Unless those
motion?
adults are parents.
Yeah.
Well, first reading.
Right.
Yeah, we will.
I'll second.
Oh,
Okay. And we'll vote to approve for first reading.
Yes.
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 Great.
Thank
Or
you.
before we go
Ken.
on, I had a question. Are we streaming live? Do we get that fixed, or is that not working? I got a text saying we're not live.
I think you're live, and when I double check to see who the attendings are, you still have people watching live.
Okay.
Okay.
Brad says we're good to go. I haven't heard anything otherwise.
I have to say, this has been one of the smoothest Zooms
Oh,
ever.
don't say
So
Don't
kudos.
say it out loud.
Don't say it. Thanks, Jill.
I don't want to jinx anything right now, but like everything seems to be working.
All right, let's move on to policy 5321 being updated to 5401.
Okay, thank you. This is sick leave policy. This is classified as critical by WASDA. And so, yeah, the change is changing the policy number to 5401, moving the bulk of the policy to a new procedure and removing specific language referencing WACs and RCWs to prevent the policy from having to be modified if the language changes. So you can see in the policy that WASDA really gutted the policy and shortened it significantly. And then a lot of that that's been crossed out moves into procedures that we have in there at the end of the policy as well.
Policy in line with the bargaining agreements?
So, yes, there's a part in the procedure I'm going to have to change though, where it talks about on page 1 of the sick leave procedure, unused front-loaded sick paid leave balances of 40 hours or less will carry over to the following year. It's actually more than the 40 hours. So it implies that there's a limit there, and there is a limit, but it's the 12 days.
The other thing that I saw was we can choose not to pay for more than 3 days.
Yeah.
Is that in the agreement?
No, we'll have to.
Okay.
I'm going to need to cross-reference the procedures with all of the CBAs.
Is this ready then? Do you need to go through that process before it comes back to us?
Well, the policy itself, I can adjust the procedures outside of the policy, but if the policy itself looks good, which I don't have any concerns with the policy the way it reads, but the procedures.
Oh yeah, I was reading the procedure.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to tweak the procedures a little bit. So yeah.
So there's nothing in the policy
No.
that is in conflict with the CBA or with current process, the way we do things?
No, there's no conflicts with policy.
Any questions? Jill?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, can I get a motion for first reading?
I'll make a motion for first reading.
Second.
We'll vote.
Yes.
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 Great.
All right,
Thank you. All right, we'll move to board discussion and old business. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring up for old business or for a future meeting to consider?
In light of what we heard from the Jefferson parents, one of the parents talked about dual language or similar innovative programs to bring people back. And that, when we looked at the numbers, cost per student for Jefferson, that's the highest of the elementary schools, and they have space. That's something I'd be interested in pursuing with the administration. I mean, if the parents are saying that's a good idea, we should try to flesh that out and see if that makes sense, to help enrollment down there. And I thought that was a pretty interesting idea.
I mean, but people have been asking for that, and we've been working on that since I've been on the board, like in different starts and stops, so I think.
What I heard though, I thought I heard Jefferson parents asking for that program to be brought to their school.
I think they said a program. And
Joe, I'm not saying that was an example she provided. I am not saying that's the one that goes there. I think that's a discussion and a community and board but what would the administration, what kind of plans would the administration or proposals would they have? I think it's a good idea that what they suggested. And I don't know if they talked about it.
I totally agree with you, Rick. And I think we really need to evaluate why the numbers are going down. In Jefferson, one of the things that the parents had mentioned, actually several of them had mentioned, was that the neighborhood is full of kids. Where are those kids going? I don't know how we track that. I don't know how we identify that. We can figure out who's still going in boundary of school. But what does that look like, and why are those numbers dwindling? So I absolutely 100% support that, Rick.
Yeah, I'm really interested in all of the enrollment questions that we get, and this in particular has been kind of back and forth a little bit for the last couple of weeks. You know, after similarly parents came to our previous board meeting. One of the questions I had just from the emails that we had gotten and some of the comments we had here from the last meeting was how much of an impact was in district transfer, because there was kind of a perception that there was, you know, that these kids were transferring to say Sacagawea or whatever. And I had asked superintendent about this and whether we could get some statistics about it. I was interested to see the cumulative effect of that. So if you had, say, 5 kids in kindergarten every year that transferred out and went somewhere else, opted out, over the course of 6 years, you have 6 different classes, that's say 30 kids total. I wanted to see that. And Ruby sent me a list today from all of our schools that was for this year only. What is the net positive, net negative to each one of the schools from in-district transfer? And I hope Ruby maybe can
we'll send it to everybody.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say.
It did not, when you're looking at it from like a Jefferson or any of the central Richland schools, really show a large impact, at least this year. So that's one data point, because there's always a anecdotal evidence. I know a kid that transferred here. I know a kid that transferred here from my neighborhood, but you don't necessarily see the kids that transfer in as well. Right.
And it was just intra. We didn't do any from outside, but here's an example. I'll just give this one and then we'll send it to you because it was brought up. Jefferson this year had 13 transfers in and 12 transfers out for a gain of 1.
To which school?
Jefferson.
To Jefferson.
So the net out and the net in, the total, they gained 1 student from the in-district.
And then Sackey transfers in 6, transfers out 10.
That's different than the data I think we were sent earlier this year. So I think you could send it out and we could look at it.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make sure when Dan, it was what he was looking for, but he wants more of a comprehensive one.
This year, I'd like to see comprehensive, but just looking at this alone would indicate, even when we get the comprehensive, unless this is an outlier, it's not going to add up to having a real contribution to the large enrollment change.
Yeah, usually it's kind of a wash, but the numbers we had gotten before were like 34 out to Sackey and 20 in from Sackey. That was what we had gotten.
And I don't know if it's on that list, Dan, but also if they transferred out, did they transfer into district out, or do we just not know where they went?
Well, what I asked for was all in-district transfer stuff, because we don't have control of a kid that decides they're going to go somewhere else.
Okay.
And the tricky part too is we don't have control too if a student never walks through the doors. They could live in the neighborhood, but they could go, like, for example, Children's Garden Montessori and then to Christ the King or Liberty Christian, and we would not even know they were there.
But we never had them to start with, so they were never part of our numbers.
Yeah, I think that's what the parents were talking about a little bit.
Yeah,
was that we never see.
And you're going to have that in any neighborhood in any district, also.
Right. Anything else?
Which actually would be interesting to see. The numbers that increase once a kid hits middle school, and then how our numbers increase once they hit freshman. Because that would give us an idea as far as how many people are coming in from private schools that did not go to elementary schools within district.
Right. I think it's a comprehensive, it would be good for in the future.
Yeah. I mean, just as like what our numbers were from 8th grade going into senior or into freshman, and then what they ended up being.
Well, Rick's comments on the the program, I mean, bringing a special program into one of them. Is that something that the facilities task force might be?
I'm
tasked
gonna
with
bring it
looking
up,
at?
but I don't know if we're tasked to do it. But I'm gonna bring it up because I think that's something we need to evaluate as we look at our facilities as well. Will our schools in 10 years look the way they are now? Some of them will. I mean, we have a lot of parents who like the model that we have now, but do we need facilities that meet a different need, whether it's a CTE program, a CTE, I'm missing the words, project-based kind of facility, or is it a Montessori kind of a facility? Some of those are different. So I'm going to bring it up, but to answer your question, I think the facilities task force would be better served with the administrators looking at what kind of things would bring people into the district. I know we have a waiting list for HomeLink now. We just don't have the facilities for it right now.
And we usually have a waiting list for River's Edge too,
Mhm.
and we don't have facilities for it as well. I mean, one of the things we've asked for is a list of empty classrooms in all the schools, just to get a sense of what the capacity would be for bringing in new programs. This is also something we could talk about when we start to discuss what goals for next year might be. If this is something we would want to task the district with evaluating programs that could be developed and put in other schools as choice programs, for example.
So one of the things that I had asked Brian a little bit ago was when we were doing the financial analysis, what programs do we currently have in the district and what is the outcome of those programs? I think that we really need to dig deep into that. Just because A, it costs money, and B, how many people are actually utilizing those. But when we talk about HomeLink and the wait list that's there, we've seen that ongoing for several years now, that HomeLink has continued to grow because it is outside the norm or the prototypical education model. And I think we, as a board, need to look more at that and how we can implement those types of programs into our current buildings. Because HomeLink is homeschool, but it also provides a lot of opportunity for in-school education. So just sort of differentiating and establishing what it is those students and those kids and those parents want. Because like Rick has said, and even Dan, those numbers have grown a lot, and there is a pretty substantial wait list on that. So how do we change our existing models to encourage more participation in them?
Yeah, and I think that reminds me, as I look back at the human capital audit, we don't have the ALE programs in there. So it might be good to think about adding the ALE programs in there too.
The principals were ALE included though. What the high school
In the job description.
in the job
In
description?
the job descriptions, but not in terms
Okay.
of class size and teacher ratios and cost per student was not included.
Right.
So. Anything else for old business? We will move on to the consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Or can I get a motion to approve consent?
I'll move the consent agenda.
Second?
We'll vote.
Yes.
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 And looking at future agendas, I think we wanted to add the
Yes.
student presentation on the SCL survey to the next meeting.
Yes. We have all the responses now. We got over 1,300. So
Okay. So we will add that. Anything else to add to a future agenda? Anything else, Jill, for the good of the order?
Nope, I'm good.
We normally have two or three students from Delta that sit out in the audience, and I just want to say, in case they're watching this either online or later, we're missing you tonight.
They're with Public Facilities Committee. Yeah.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
That's fine. Oh, you know, they might be. All right.
So are we offline?